To other news now, and retail sales suffered a shock 1.1% drop in October, the biggest decline in 15 months. Taken with yesterday's disappointing GDP figures, they suggest that all in the economy is not quite as rosy as we're led to believe. In what would be a worrying sign for retailers in the lead up to Christmas, these figures also predate November's rate rise. Here's Simon Palin.
It seems the big retailers weren't crying wolf. Pleas for help from retail heavyweights like Gerry Harvey have been reinforced by some very disappointing retail trade figures.
These figures basically indicate that Gerry Harvey was right on the mark in indicating that retailing had become very weak.
Australian retail sales collapsed 1.1% in October to just over $20 billion. Economists had tipped a 0.4% increase.
The surprise about these retail numbers is that the decline occurred before the November rate rise, and so the risk is that you will get another decline in retail sales in November.
The flood of shoppers buying from overseas websites isn't helping, nor is the bad weather.
Well, pretty much down the east coast we've had bad weather, and it's often coincided with weekends when people go out and do their shopping. So when the weather's cool and wet, people aren't thinking about buying summer clothing like board shorts and T-shirts.
That's possibly why the biggest sales slumps were in clothing and footwear, as well as in restaurants and cafes. The latest retail trade decline reverses 7 consecutive months of increases, and it underlines the patchy state of the overall economy, shown by yesterday's weak economic growth figure in the national accounts. But separate data on international trade offer a more positive view. Australia's trade surplus for October has widened by more than expected to more than $2.6 billion. That's up from $1.8 billion in September. While imports were down 3%, exports lifted by 1%. The gains were driven largely by agricultural exports.
At the moment we're seeing a bounce back in the agricultural sector, and that reflects improved rainfall and higher commodity prices.
That was also a feature of yesterday's national accounts, but some farmers are worried about too much rain.
We're really on a knife edge at the moment. We're looking in southeastern Australia at potentially one of the best crops on record on the east coast, but at the moment we're struggling to get onto the crop to harvest it, and we're seeing quality downgrades and yield downgrades as a result of this weather.
The reality is that the agricultural exports sort of move up and down with the weather and are very volatile, so we can't rely on them going forward, and I'm sure the pace will slow down quite dramatically in the months ahead. The key for Australia, of course, is the mining sector, and we need to see the iron ore and coal exports pick up going forward.
And Shane Oliver says today's trade and retail figures reinforce his view that interest rates will stay on hold well into next year.